All right, welcome back to my channel, Fear of the Northman. I'm excited. This video is getting put out a little later than I would have liked, but it is what it is. Have yet to get some shooting footage. It's been raining today. It's hard to sync up with anyone. Obviously the gun shops, the indoor gun ranges are closed. We're gonna figure out at some point, we're gonna get some footage of me shooting so you guys know that I've actually done it and I'm not a liar about shooting. But what I was gonna do today, which I'm excited about, continuing with the segment on firearms, guns, for Get to Know the Northman, I'm gonna show you my two firearms that I own. I need to add to it, one of which I'm gonna get rid of at some point just because I don't believe I need it anymore, but I figured I'd show it to you guys so that you could see what I have, and also too, maybe develop your own strategy for what you wanna carry and or keep for your house. So first and foremost, I'll show the home defense gun. This is my Remington 870. This is a wonderful shotgun for the money. I think I bought it at MC Sports. I think MC Sports is now out of business, but I think I paid around $450 total, out the door, everything. And it's a wonderful, wonderful shotgun. This thing is accurate. The barrel is shorter, as you can see. If I have it in the, I apologize, I'm gonna be trying to figure this out as I go here, making sure on camera. Okay, I think I got it in there. The barrel's a little shorter. This is the perfect shotgun for, or the perfect type of shotgun, if you will, for home defense. It's also a shotgun that could be used for military and or law enforcement trying to clear a crowd. If there's a riot or if there's a gunfight, this is really a great option. The short barrel makes it a little easier to maneuver. This actually carries 5, and if you wanted to, +1. It's an amazing shotgun for the money. I think the Mossberg is a little better. Everyone that I've talked to that compares the two tends to go with the Mossberg. Mossberg is a great firearm, German made, fantastic. But I wanted a Remington. My good friend had a Remington, let me shoot his, showed me his gun. I liked it. I decided to go with this, entry level. The problem with this is that it's just a little too powerful. So it is actually, there are rounds in it. I'm gonna chamber it and then I'm gonna eject all 5 rounds. I'll show you guys how to do that. There's actually this, as I get closer, I don't know if it'll work. There's actually, I call it a little thumbnail right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably not, because it's not well lit. But on a shotgun, there is this little, I call it like a thumbnail, like a little hangnail. It's a trigger. Once you actually engage a round into the cylinder, that's the wrong word, into the barrel, you can then press or depress, whatever word works, right there, and then slide the rack to actually, or this right here, whatever, here, let me do this. This is my first gun, but this is exciting. This right here, whatever it's called, to actually eject the round. So it is loaded. Well, I got rounds in the tube. I'm gonna put one in. Now it's actually ready to go. All I gotta do is turn the safety off, which is right here. Red, you're dead. Black, no attack. That's the way to, or rather, red, they're dead. Black, no attack. So the safety is on. I'm gonna engage the little, I don't know, trigger, hangnail, whatever it's called, to get all of the rounds out. There's 5 in there. And then I like to always just run it a few times after, just to make sure all the rounds are out, and then obviously check as well. You want to check in the, I guess you could call this like, man, the light sucks, sorry. I guess you could call this like the window well, I don't know. And this right here, just to make sure there's nothing in there, all that good stuff. Once you have that empty, you want to make sure you fire it. Boom, you're good to go. This is a great firearm for a home defense round, or I'm sorry, for a home defense gun. I shoot 12 gauge slugs. I'm a big fan of slugs. They hit extremely hard. You have to be a lot more accurate than you do with buckshot or birdshot, but a slug is a round where, I mean, people use it to hunt deer. It can reach out for easily 100 yards, and it's very, very potent, very powerful. So I fire a slug. The problem with the 12 gauge is, like I said before, it's one, this thing, being that it has a short barrel, awesome, looks fantastic. I may keep it and just get a 20, I don't know. I'm not really sure. It's probably best for me to trade it in. But being that it has a short barrel, this thing kicks like a beast. And it is brutal. And the older I get, the more that I want to enjoy the shooting that I do, and the less I want to hurt and or struggle with it. So the jury's still out. Probably going to get rid of this gun, but I love it. If you want a 12 gauge and you want to shoot buckshot, actually, if you're going to use a shotgun and you want a powerful shotgun, so there's 410, there's 20 gauge, there's 12 gauge, there's probably, I think there's a 10 gauge too, I'm not really sure, but the 12 gauge shotgun is really, buckshot is really probably the standard. I think a 20 gauge would be just fine, but I mean, World War I, the trench gun, as it was called, I believe it was also a Remington shotgun, was so successful that the German army actually filed a complaint with the Geneva Convention to try to get the weapon removed. And then they told the Allies of World War I, any man caught with the round, the buckshot round, and or the gun will be killed on sight, no questions asked. That's how effective this is. So for a home defense, the shotgun platform in general, 410, 20 gauge, 12 gauge, I guess 10 gauge if it exists, I don't really know, 8 gauge, I don't know, is a phenomenal gun. If you want to go with buckshot or birdshot, 12 gauge is probably where it's at. I'm going to back it down and probably go to 20 gauge and myself keep shooting slug, because I think my wife and I will be able to fire that no problem, and it's still going to kick pretty good. Not kick us, but kick the bad guys if they come in. So 12 gauge shotgun by Remington 870. It's a great gun. Check it out. Most gun stores and or ranges have this, and for probably like $20 you can test run it if you want to. So I'd encourage you maybe take a look at it. I like it. I'm a big fan of it. If you like the feel and the look, you then got to decide the round you want to use. I shoot a slug. It's up to you. There's a lot of great options out there. You got to decide for yourself. I'm going to put that down. Now I'm going to take out my my hammer. It is loaded. Let me unload it here real quick. We haven't gotten here yet. I wanted to actually get here with some shooting footage to explain my logic. I live in the country, but I have houses all around. The firearm is unloaded. As you can see, there's nothing in the cylinder. It's completely unloaded. I am not a semi-auto guy. I'm not at all. I really struggle with semi-autos. They freak me out in a lot of ways. Stuff flying out at you and or to the side of you. That's just not me. The older I get, the more I realize how traditional I actually am. Semi-autos are phenomenal. The semi-autos of today with a good magazine are, the gun itself is as reliable as a revolver. Now there are terrible designs, there are terrible brands that are awful, but the semi-autos of today, not the semi-autos of 3 or 4 generations ago, but the ones of today, they're as reliable as a semi-auto. The technology is phenomenal. There's such a wide variety of rounds calibers, and some of those calibers get up to the effectiveness of what I'm carrying right here, which is, this is my Taurus Tracker. It's my 7-shot 357 Magnum. I'm going to get into that in a bit, why I chose that round. But the semi-autos of the day are fantastic, so I'm not going to disparage semi-autos. The nowadays, my friend has a SIG. It's a 10+1. It's a compact. It's an amazing firearm. He's accurate as the day is long. It's phenomenal. But for me, although semi-autos are today technologically more superior than they were in yesteryear, however you want to say it, the fact of the matter is a semi-auto requires you to be better trained and really have your mind in the game better should you need to pull it. And in the firearms world, I'd encourage you at some point, jump on YouTube and just listen to different gun guys and Second Amendment guys talk. And there's a lot of different opinions on a lot of different things. When I uploaded my first video about the shotgun, we saw a lot of discussion on my Facebook page, different calibers. And that's one of the awesome things, but downsides to firearm. At the same time, it's awesome and it's a downside. There's so many different ways to go. What you have to do for yourself is you basically have to ascertain for yourself what are you going to most likely be most comfortable with. This is before you even start shooting anything. Eventually, you're going to have to fire a firearm or a gun and decide what round, what caliber makes the most sense for you. But there's so many different ways to go. But for me, from the start, I knew I wanted to go with a revolver. The revolver is simply put, it's more simple. This round that I shoot, the .357 Magnum, it's a 158 grain bullet. It's a more powerful round than most likely any round that will be carried by a conceal and carry or self-defender. Most people are carrying a .380 or a 9mm round. Both are very competent rounds, easy to use, especially a .380. Women are exceptionally good at .380s. Women tend to thrive using a .380. Not a lot of kick. You can get a lot of rounds into a small gun. So the 9mm to the .380 are wonderful rounds, but they are vastly less powerful than the .357 Magnum, especially when you compare the weight of the bullet. This is 158 grain weight. I'll show you the bullet that I have right here. This is just practice ammo. It's blazer ammo. It's pretty dirty once you shoot it, but it's a very powerful round. 158 grain was the standard for years for law enforcement. The reason that is because it not only provided stopping power, not the way that a 45 did. 45 ACP is a big round, moving really slow, but the 158 grain weight is still a fairly big bullet, and the force of it coming out of a Magnum firearm, like a Colt Python or the Smith & Wesson 686 or whatever the case may be, it not only penetrated well, but it also would break bone. Whereas a 9mm and definitely a .380, many times they can run along the bone. They'll hit bone and just kind of hit someone's arm and then go down and come out, which can cause problems. It typically can require more rounds. Typically, you would need more rounds to put the threat down than you would with a more powerful gun, theoretically. So a good example of that is, and for every example I show, I'm sure there's an example that goes the other direction, but the attempted church shooting in Texas where the security guard defended the church successfully with his .357 SIG, that's basically a semi-auto version of the .357 Magnum. There is actually a .357 Magnum semi-auto. It's called the Kunin. It's an amazing firearm, but the .357 SIG is typically a smaller bullet, but it's moving at high velocity. It mirrors in many ways the .357 Magnum. He was able to take down that threat with one round, and that's because the .357 SIG is probably one of the best semi-auto rounds you can find. Difficult to find and expensive, but it's an extremely good round. Anyways, having said that, I'm kind of going over the place. I apologize. There's just a lot with firearms, and I'm really not, I can only speak to what I know. For me, I'm really not someone I've never been in combat, thank God. I've never been a law enforcement agent. I've been through a few training sessions, but all I know is what I know for me, and that's what I'm trying to tell you to help you decide for yourself what you want to do. One of the things that I liked about the revolver right away is how simple it is, and I know I said it. If I carry this revolver, carried on my appendix, or I'm sorry, on my kidney, it's called kidney carry. If I pull my revolver, again, it's empty, there's nothing in it. But if I pull my revolver, I know that all I have to do is get that thing out there, get the person on target, pull the trigger. My philosophy, which a friend of mine told me this, who was in the military, you never shoot once, you always shoot twice. So every threat, whether it's an animal or a person, whatever the case may be, you give them their first and their seconds in one go-round, which I think is correct. That's philosophically correct. But I wanted something that I knew would be easy to use. I could pull it out, get it up, get it on target, and go to work right away. We don't have any hard data on the amount of rounds that are used in gunfights. The general consensus, I think, is anywhere between 5 to 7 or 6 to 10 rounds. So in this case, with my 7-round .357 Magnum, I have, and that, by the way, that's between both people. So now some of those numbers could be skewed because I could be wrong, but I think suicides, which typically only takes one bullet, suicides I think are included in that. But the fact of the matter is, we know that between two people in a gunfight, many times it's rarely over 10 rounds. So that means if you have a gun that's 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds in a self-defense situation, you probably have enough rounds to get you through it. Years ago, I was a bouncer. There was a few nights through the week that got pretty rough. The owner would hire law enforcement to come in and basically be an arresting power should the need arise. One of the officers on duty actually carried a little 38 special. It was a snub nose 38. I asked him one day, I said, hey, 5 rounds, what if you need more? And his exact words were, if I can't get another 5, it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. So there's a lot of practicality to that. But for me, the simplicity of a revolver, even though you struggle with capacity, is a big thing for me that was super important. Semi-autos are as reliable today as revolvers, good semi-autos, but it requires that the shooter or the defender really be more on their game. So here's one point. A lot of semi-auto people, they don't carry their gun with a round in the chamber, which I think is a big mistake. Because if you're in a situation where you have to use your gun and your adrenaline's going, you may not have the presence of mind to chamber the round correctly. I've seen a lot of videos of off-duty officers and people in general who carry a firearm go to chamber a round and their adrenaline is going and they're sweaty and they can't do it and they end up losing the fight, all because they didn't carry a round in their firearm. Again, the firearm was great. The firearm was ready to go, would have worked had the person been sufficiently trained and or understood the ins and outs of the type of firearm they were using. The gun itself probably was just fine. It was the user that was the problem. So for me, and I said that to say this, that's another reason why I went with a revolver. This is just meat and potatoes. I mean, all I gotta do is pull it and pull the trigger. Not a lot of thought has to go into it. I can pull it, get the target on sight, or get the sights on target, and go to work. I don't have to worry about chambering anything. I don't have to worry about disengaging a safety. I don't have to worry about gripping the firearm correctly to engage all of the mechanisms to turn off the safeties, which I think are great. That's great technology. Don't get me wrong. But in the moment of the need, will you have the presence of mind and just the muscle memory and the training to pull the firearm out and go to work? So for me, the simplicity of the revolver was really the main draw, number one. And then, and I apologize, guys, I'm kind of rambling, so forgive me for that. And then after that, the power was really important to me. When I was first thinking about getting a gun, I actually thought about getting a 44 Magnum because I love the old Dirty Harry movies, Clint Eastwood, love the round, fantastic. But quickly did some very basic research and realized that'd be very stupid to do that. There's nothing wrong with carrying a 44 Magnum and shooting 44 Special or shooting 44 Magnum. The fact of the matter is, though, it's highly impractical. There are aspects of me carrying this gun that are impractical. Revolvers, especially a full-size revolver like this. This is a 4-inch barrel, 7-shot 357 Magnum. It is a Taurus. It's a phenomenal gun. It is ported. It helps mitigate recoil. So does the handle material. This is like a rubber ribbed material. It's fantastic. But there are some practicality issues with carrying a revolver, a full-size revolver. I had my holster custom made with a guy down in Bedford who created this holster for me. It's out of Kydex. It's a Kydex material. He charged me the exact same amount as I would have paid had I purchased one from Galco, which is a national company. But this is an inside the waistband speedloader holster. This is an inside the waistband holster for my 357 Magnum. The reason why I can do that easily is because although I'm not an NBA basketball player and the tallest guy on the planet, I am fairly tall. I'm 6'1", so I can actually hold my gun in a manner where I can actually conceal it if I need to when the time comes. The point is this. For me, I wanted something that was simple and I wanted something that was powerful. Okay, there is an opinion that a revolver is inherently more accurate because this is all one piece. It doesn't move, whereas a semi-auto does. But for me, I wanted something that was powerful and that was something that was simple and that was powerful. And there's nothing more simple concerning guns than a revolver, and there are very few firearms that you can carry easily that are as powerful, especially when you're talking about the .357 Magnum round. The .357 Magnum round, I think, was developed in the 30s by a law enforcement agent who was also an avid shooter. For a time, if not still, he had the most recorded gunfights in law enforcement history, I think, for a time. I'm not entirely sure about that. But the .357 Magnum 158 grain bullet was the staple for law enforcement for years, with the slight exception to, in the federal world, they actually shot a 158 grain semi-hollow point wad cutter, which is a .38 special round. It's an amazing round, kicks less than the .357 Magnum, has lower power, lower velocity, but the wad cutter shape, the wad cutter bullet, go to YouTube, look that up. It's an amazing round. Coupled with the semi-hollow point, still did a lot of damage and provided great stopping power, albeit less powerful than the .357 Magnum. But for me, like I said, the simplicity of it and the power having been basically over time proven by law enforcement agents in America, up until obviously the age where the semi-auto really came into its own, and law enforcement had to evolve with the times as criminals started carrying firearms with a much higher capacity, much greater rounds. The 6 to 7 shot gun, although wonderful, although timeless, was just now inadequate for the law enforcement needs as well as for military. So that's why they made the transition. It was wise for them to do that. But for defensive, for the purposes of concealed carry and or home defense, whatever the case may be, for me, it was a revolver. Simplicity, power, ease of use. For me, as a man, I feel more comfortable, I feel more confident firing this gun. I've shot my friend's .45 ACP out of, I believe, a 3-inch barrel. Beautiful firearm. It's a SIG, wonderful. It just bothered me. I didn't like it. The fire bolt out of it was as big as this, or the fireball, excuse me. Stuff flying out to the side. It's just, I'm uncomfortable. I didn't like it. That's me. Now, what I want to do is this. I want to talk briefly. Let me put this in my holster here. I want to talk briefly, though, up to you. And then I'm going to be done. This video is a little longer than I anticipated. I apologize. So, for me, as someone who gets to the range whenever he can, I don't have any military experience. The guy that does security in our church does have combat experience. He's a firearms aficionado. Someone like him is going to be more successful or have a higher propensity of being successful with a semi-auto than someone like me. Okay? Most likely, you are like me. Most likely. You can't get to the range every week. Most likely, you're not going to be able to really put in the time and the effort to really be proficient with your firearm if you're carrying a .380, 9mm, 45 ACP, 40 caliber, etc., whatever the case may be. Most likely, you're not going to have the time to do it. Having said that, I believe for most people who want to carry a firearm and or have a firearm in the home for concealed carry and or for home protection, if you're going to have a handgun, I do believe the best choice is a revolver. Even though you do deal with the issue of capacity, you're always going to have fewer rounds in a revolver than you will, for the most part, in any semi-auto you come across. The simplicity of the platform, the ease with which you can use it, the accuracy and the power, and or the effectiveness of the round. 38 Special many times isn't a great round. 9mm outperforms 38 Special a lot of times. But there are variants of the 38 Special, like the semi-hollow point wad cutter or just the wad cutter in general, that can be really effective even to this day. The interesting thing about firearms is technology of yesteryear, like a soft lead tip, 180 grain 357 Magnum round, which I'm going to jump up to the 180 grain here soon because I want even more stopping power if I can achieve it. But that soft lead tip, that still is an extremely effective technology in that once the round strikes the human body or the animal body, whatever the case may be, the lead is going to expand and peel back and create greater damage, as well as the weight of the round will cause significant damage as well. So technology of yesteryear is still viable and still works today, even though there's been advancements and there's much better technology today. And I said that because even though there's much better ammo options today than there were of yesteryear or concepts from yesteryear, the concepts from back in the day still work really well, and they're just more accessible and they're easier to use because they're coming in a revolver platform. I was at the range before the coronavirus thing really went out, or really blew up, and literally on two sides of me were both older men. One guy had some type of 9mm small rifle thing, I don't know. He was violating every range rule there was. The actual range officer had to sit with him just to make sure the gun was unloaded before he left, and yada, yada, yada. But he was having a heck of a time using that firearm. That, I understand, is different than a handgun, but it was a very complicated firearm that he was using. I think he bought it. I think he had it for fun. But the man directly to the left of me, though, was an older gentleman as well, who was either shooting a 9mm round or a .380. I didn't actually inspect the gun. I really didn't look into it. But while I'm, shooting my .357 Magnum, the way I try to shoot, I try to do 1-2, so it's pop, 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 pop. Again, if you ever have to use your firearm in a defensive scenario, you always want to give that threat its first and second serving in the same setting, or in the same engagement. Anyways, while I'm shooting my gun, I set it down and go to reload. I look over, this older gentleman couldn't even wrap the slide to chamber round. He was literally struggling with his gun just to load the firearm, or rather just to put the gun in a position where he could actually put it on target, pull the trigger, and have it fire. And in my head, I wanted to just peep, my head around his, I was at Top Guns in Terre Haute. They have bulletproof glass in it, so I just wanted to pop my head around mine and just say, go trade it in and buy a .38, bud. You don't need to use that. You just go get a wheel gun and go to work. And the fact of the matter is, that's entirely accurate. As people who consider carrying a firearm, we don't have the time in our day, most likely, to really go and practice and be efficient and proficient with a semi-auto platform. We really don't. Most people don't. It's just the way it is. Can you get trained enough to where you can carry around in the chamber, learn to turn the safety off if you have one, or buy a firearm without a safety? Some semi-auto guys like safety, some don't like it at all. They just want to pull and go to work. I tend to agree with the guys where there is no safety, keep around in the chamber. That's basically how I carry my gun, or how my gun is set up ready to be carried. Anyways, most people, though, don't have the time and the training to, should they pull their semi-auto, there's a round in the chamber, there's no safety, they go to pull the trigger and it doesn't fire. Most people don't have the time to train to deal with a jam or a squib or the gun not working right, to get it back in action and get the gun on target. Most people don't. The thing about a revolver is if I pull that trigger and that round doesn't go, no big deal, boom, start pulling that trigger again, that round, that cylinder cycles over to the next round. Something's going to fire. The simplicity of a revolver cannot be denied. And when you couple that with the hustle and bustle of the American life and really our inability really to get out and really get highly skilled at really anything, just because of the sort of all the different things that are pulling us on our life, our spouse, our kids, our work, whatever the case may be, it's just difficult to do that. So the revolver is an easier platform to pick up and become proficient with, to where you can at least put 5 rounds into a threat, 6 rounds into a threat, 7 rounds into a threat if you needed to do that. Now, there's some really high skill stuff concerning revolver, like reloading with a speed loader, drawing effectively, because typically a revolver is a little bulkier. With a full-size revolver, I got to make sure my shirt is cleared, get it up. There's what you do anyways, whether it's a semi-auto or not, but with a full-size gun like a revolver, it can present some challenges. But just the simplicity of picking up the revolver, putting it on target, and going to work, it's just easier. So if you're someone who's considering using a firearm for yourself, for the home, if you want to go out and carry a firearm, or whatever the case may be, I would strongly encourage you, please do not discount the simplicity, the power, and the effectiveness of a revolver. You'll be able to become more proficient with that firearm, I believe, much faster, much easier than you would if you chose a semi-auto. Just the way it is. It's an easier platform to pick up. I mean, a revolver is like addition and subtraction, and in my opinion, a semi-auto, depending on the type of gun you're getting, is closer to multiplication and division. It's just a higher form. It's technology that is advanced, technology that in some ways is more superior to a revolver in some ways. So if you're someone who's considering, again, a firearm for yourself, for the home, you want a handgun and or self-defense, I would encourage you to get a revolver. This has been my episode for the day for Get to Know the Northman. That's my shotgun, that's my revolver. Let me show you one more time. It's my Remington 870. The wife let me do this in our room, which I was shocked. This is my Remington 870. It's a great shotgun. You decide what you want, whether it's 12 gauge or 20 or a 410. I don't know if Remington makes a 410, but 410 is a great round for home defense. Great caliber, excuse me, should you want it. This is my revolver, 357 Magnum, chambered in 38 special. Sorry, chambered in 357 Magnum. I can shoot 38 special. I shoot 357 Magnum. Great gun for home defense. Great gun to carry if I want to. Ported, Taurus, lifetime warranty. I'm not sponsored by anybody. My channel has 17 subscribers. None of that. I don't matter. This is just what I like. This is what I believe in. I hope this helps you make a decision for yourself. It's every American's right and obligation to make sure their families are protected. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you hated it, send it to someone you hate. Let's go.